We're going to be talking about Iran. There has been renewed speculation about possible negotiations, very serious negotiations between Washington and Tehran again, but maybe it's for real this time. And this is, of course, even as Israel continues pushing for confrontation. And Lebanon remains dangerously exposed outside any broader ceasefire framework. And of course, this comes just days after a massive escalation around the Strait of Hormuz, where the Trump administration had announced Project Freedom, this major U.S. naval operation meant to force commercial shipping back through the Strait of Hormuz, only for the operation to stall almost as quickly as it began amidst mounting regional backlash, Iranian warnings, and growing fears of direct military confrontation. To help us break all of this down, we're joined by Elijah Magnier, veteran war correspondent and military analyst covering the region. Elijah, thank you so much for coming back to the show.
Hello, and thank you for having me. I'm sorry to disappoint you. I'm not a woman.
We'll make do. We'll allow it. We'll allow it this once. But thank you for the apology, Elijah. But no, in all seriousness, as I mentioned, Elijah, as you know, there's this renewed talk of a U.S. Iran deal happening any day now after this Strait of Hormuz escalation. Do you think these negotiations are actually serious this time? Or is this mainly about buying time again to calm the markets while pressure continues on both sides?
Well, there is no reason for the deal to happen because the gap is huge between both sides. So everything that is happening is just to temper the market and to calm down the price of oil. It is functioning because Donald Trump has lost the credibility, and now we have Axios coming in and the media saying, well, the deal is imminent and it's very close, when the Iranians did not yet respond to the letter sent by the Americans as a response to their letter. So we have a huge gap between both sides for a simple reason. The Iranians are saying, let us leave the nuclear deal and nuclear dossier and talks for another time, and we start the most urgent. First, the end of the war, and then we talk about everything else. You lift the blockade, you lift the sanctions, and then we can sit and talk, because it takes time. With Obama, it took several years to reach an agreement, and Donald Trump wants to strike a deal in a few days. It's not going to work.
Yeah, it's almost dizzying, these back and forth declarations from the Trump administration regarding these, issues and how then you have the media saying one thing, them saying the other thing. But Elijah, in your latest article reflecting on this, you argue that Iran does not need to actually defeat U.S. militarily to impose massive costs, namely its use of the Strait of Hormuz. So how much leverage in this moment does Tehran actually have in these talks?
Well, yes. First of all, Iran did not start a war. Therefore, it doesn't have objectives to meet, but to defend itself. And Iran has defended itself. This is why Donald Trump is saying 7 to 10 times a day, I won every single day, apart from posting on Twitter, the White House 100 times winning, winning, winning. This is just showing that actually he has a problem with that. Secondly, and most importantly, we have the Gulf today is really seriously discussing the presence of the US bases that have been, according to the New York Times satellite image, completely destroyed or severely damaged. Therefore, the Arabs today think about what's the purpose in having a liability on their territory, incapable of defending themselves and defending the country that are hosting them. So for that, there is a serious talk that is starting to pick up among the Gulf countries as a necessity to revive the 2019 proposition by Jawad Zarif, the former foreign minister during the Sheikh Hassan Rouhani's leadership. He proposed in Qatar security among Gulf countries, and that was ignored, and now it is on the table. So what we are seeing today is Iran really steady on its position, defending itself to the last moment, and then Donald Trump diverting the attention from the failure of Epic Fury to a plan that lasted only 24 hours to realize that escorting with 2 U.S. Navy warships, one single American ship or two, while there are 1,550 ships stuck inside the Strait of Hormuz, and he's the one who said, I am imposing the blockade. So this is where Iran is starting and saying, you have to end the war. But there is a major problem. Who trusts the US? The US started the war against the Iranians twice during negotiations. Therefore, there is a lack of trust. Even the mediators, Pakistan, or superpower countries like China and Russia, cannot guarantee the security that Iran is asking in case of any deal. Who is going to guarantee but just if Iran delivered the 60% uranium to Russia or China, that the Americans are going to abide by the agreement, lift all the sanctions, because there's going to be a problem in bringing back the 60%. Is the American leader accepting the fact that Iran needs to enrich uranium? That's another point, because Iran has a right to enrich even up to 90% as long as this program is not military, is not going toward weapons, nuclear weapons, because Iran is part of the NPT and has a right to enrich uranium under the control of the IAEA. So that also a problem and a big gap. What's going to happen with the war in Lebanon? Benjamin Netanyahu is doing everything to blow up the deal because it is not in his interest to see a deal with Iran or with Lebanon. For him, war is the only solution. And for him, that was an opportunity to have the US involved in this war. And as Senator Van Hollen said, for 40 years, finally, Benjamin Netanyahu found a stupid president to drag him in the war. These are his words. So I don't think Benjamin Netanyahu is going to let go of Donald Trump as long as he's grabbed him in the war against Iran and gives him the green light to go and bomb Beirut as he had done in the last 24 hours.
I mean, since you raised the issue of Israel, I wanted to ask also, Elijah, regionally, do you think this war has strengthened Israeli deterrence or damaged it? Because despite the destruction Israel has inflicted and the U.S., there's also this sense that Israel has failed to impose a decisive outcome, not just on Iran, not just on Lebanon, but even in Gaza.
Well, that's a good question. Let us forget about analyzing or expressing wishful thinking or ideas. Let's look at the fact. Hamas is still in Gaza, is still in control of less than half of Gaza because the Israelis control 53% of the Strip. Lebanon, Hezbollah is still active, bombing the Israelis, attacking the occupation forces in the south of Lebanon, and conducting a war of attrition. Iran launched missiles to the last moment, and the Americans are negotiating with the same leaders, with the same ruling system, not the same people, but exactly the same ruling system that was and still ruling Iran. The Ansarullah in Yemen, they're still there. So Benjamin Netanyahu did not achieve anything but the destruction. He's capable of destroying, but destruction in military terms doesn't mean victory. He did not impose on Hamas or Hezbollah or Iran or Ansarullah anything. He did not dictate his will. He cannot accept the fact that Iran is a regional power because he wants to be the only one. Did he succeed? So far, no. Even with the intervention of the strongest country in the world, the United States, and the strongest army in the Middle East, the Israelis. Both have failed, and Iran showed resilience and the capability as Hamas, as Hezbollah, as the Ansarullah in Yemen to stand against these challenges, damaged, but they still functioning. So the answer is, according to these facts, Benjamin Netanyahu has really failed in his objectives, and he did not reach any. And this is why he's struggling domestically and hide his failure by target assassination that he conducts against leaders that are easily replaceable.
Well, it will never be shocking and horrifying that waging genocidal war is somehow a domestic strategy to defend your own like fake leadership over a fake country. But that is the world that we live in. You know, you mentioned that Israel, again, is backed by the biggest military power in the world. The U.S. and its allies spend over $1 trillion annually in the military. Yet it seems that Iran has been able to outlast. And a new Washington Post report citing U.S. intelligence assessments seems to contradict the narrative from Trump and Netanyahu that Iran is on the brink of collapse and that their military is dead, that the U.S. has completely destroyed their navy, et cetera, et cetera. According to this report, again, published by the Washington Post, not exactly the champions of liberation struggles and progressive causes. The CIA believes that Iran can actually survive the U.S. naval blockade on Iran for at least 3 to 4 months before really facing severe economic hardship. It also says that Iran still retains roughly 75% of its mobile missile launchers and 70% of its pre-war missile stockpiles. And that it has continued to restore some of the underground facilities and some of the damaged systems. So with this report in mind, and given the current scale of the assault, in your assessment, how much capacity does Iran actually have militarily, and can it outlast if the U.S. and Israel resume attacks on it?
Excellent question. In 1980, when Jimmy Carter imposed the first sanctions, throughout the years until, let's say, Donald Trump in his first mandate, 2018, with the maximum pressure, and then in his second term, again, more pressure, every single president thought that these sanctions will bring Iran to its knees. And the last one, when Donald Trump in his first mandate said, I am waiting by the phone for Iran to call me. And the telephone never rang. Therefore, the wishful thinking of the American, thinking that it is possible to bring Iran to its knees with the sanctions, never worked. In fact, in 2019, Iran was exporting only 300,000 barrels of oil per day. So they moved from 3 million to 2 million to 300, which is really minimum what Iran can export via land. Today, Iran has a land, has a railway through Uzbekistan. It has the blockade is leaking. There are tankers that are crossing the blockade, and China is not acknowledging the US sanctions, ordering its refinery to receive the Iranian oil. Iran can last, and they have a way to restrict their expenditure and live with the income that they receive, disregarding the several hundred billions of dollars in the hand of the marja'iyah, the source of emulation, like was the Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei, and now his son, Sayyid Mujtaba Khamenei, who brings from the Holy Shrine a lot of money. And Iran doesn't have only oil to sell. This is why Iran can survive. This is the problem of countries who are not used to deal with other state and non-state actors with an ideology of sacrifices, not losses, and survival with what they have, but not in the same standard as we understand it in the West. So I think Iran can survive very well.
Well, Elijah Magnier, veteran military analyst and correspondent, thank you so much for joining us to break all this down. We really appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.